In the heart of the imperial palace, where power blends with poison and secrets mix with perfume, new chapters begin. Maomao, the sharp-witted and sharp-tongued apothecary, returns to face even deeper mysteries and more dangerous conspiracies. Behind walls adorned with incense and elegance, silent crimes are committed, and schemes are spun in the shadows. From medical investigations to assassination attempts, from disappearing courtesans to ghosts of a buried past. Every step Maomao takes brings her closer to the truth, but also closer to peril. In this video, we'll take you on a thrilling journey through the recap of the Apothecary Diaries Season 2, covering episodes 1 through 12. Get ready for fiery events, gripping investigations, and twists that will make you question everything you thought you knew. The season begins when Maomao is in the clinic, the air humid. Jinshi and Gaoshun enter. Jinshi asks, "What are you doing?" And Maomao tells him that she is making fragrant essential oil. He asks, "Why don't you make it in the Jade Mansion, your workplace?" She explains that strong scents can cause miscarriages, so she has kept as far away from Lady Gyokyu as possible. Later, while sitting with her friend Shaolan, who has asked her to teach her to read and write, Maomao explains that the emperor has distributed a collection of stories to the concubines, who in turn have read them to the maids, encouraging them to become literate in an effort to eradicate illiteracy among them. The next day, Maomao discusses with Lady Gyokyu the need to let Princess Lingli go for a walk, as this will help build her immunity. Indeed, Maomao and Mrs. Hunyan go for a walk in the garden, but the little princess follows a sound, and Maomao follows it only to discover that it is a kitten. She tries to catch it and succeeds with the help of a maid who was in the area at the time. Maomao keeps the cat away from the princess to prevent it from transmitting any diseases to her. She is puzzled by how the cat got into the palace, given the complete lockdown and the ban on keeping animals. Maomao begins caring for the cat inside the clinic, and then Jinshi comes to check on it. He asks, "Why are Gaoshun and the clinic doctor so fond of this cat?" Maomao begins to explain the characteristics of cats, saying that we can't know what cats are thinking, and that's part of their appeal. They're entertaining to watch, but you can't take your eyes off them. After a while, you feel like touching them. They act cold, but when you feed them, they become friendly. Meanwhile, Jinshi thinks these qualities apply to Maomao herself. He hugs the cat, much to Maomao's surprise at what she sees. The cat is then named Maomao and given the title of Bandit Warner, and she searches for rats in the clinic. The next day, the maids, accompanied by Maomao, prepare to tidy Lady Gyokyu's mansion for the arrival of the merchant caravan, which will bring goods to sell to them in what resembles an annual palace shopping spree. The maids inform her that new maids will be joining them. The shopping spree begins, but Maomao and her friend Shaolan wait their turn after the high-class concubines have finished shopping. Maomao had planned to go on the last day to get even greater discounts. On their way, Maomao meets the maid Shisui, the same maid who helped her catch the cat a few days earlier. After the merchant caravan departs, Maomao is in the laundry area with Shaolan. By chance, one of the maids drops a laundry basket on Maomao, causing her to marvel at the strong scent emanating from the clothes. She begins sniffing all the clothes around her, then heads to Concubine Riva's mansion to sniff the maid's clothes, trying to determine the concentration of the perfumes. However, she is dismissed by Lady Shin, the head maid, who directly complains to Jinshi about Maomao's strange behavior. We then move to the reception room of Lady Gyokyu's mansion, where Jinshi is reprimanding Maomao for her embarrassing behavior. However, Maomao coolly tells him that she has clear reasons for what she did. When Jinshi asks her to explain those reasons, she gives him a list of the materials the merchants brought, most of which are commonly used perfumes. However, their high concentrations could pose a significant risk of miscarriage, especially for concubines Riva and Gyokyu, who are still concealing their pregnancies from everyone. Jinshi orders Gao Shun to send an urgent warning to the remaining concubines, and Lady Gyokyu orders the maids to dispose of these materials immediately. It's then that Maomao remembers that all these small details, if combined, could spell disaster, just as happened in the previous assassination attempt on Jinshi. Just as Jinshi is leaving, he receives shocking news from Gao Shun. Concubine Jin is dead. The next day, Jinshi asks Lady Gyokyu to enlist Maomao's services to investigate a mysterious case. They go together to his office, where he asks her not to do anything for now, but to simply explore the plants and mushrooms growing in the gardens surrounding the palace. Maomao finds this request strange, but agrees, enjoying the exploration. She begins collecting various mushrooms and then accompanies Lady Hunian to offer her condolences. They are surprised when one of the maids uncovers the body and blames her for infecting her. As Maomao continues exploring the gardens, her curiosity grows as to why Jinshi had requested it. However, her suspicions turn to certainty when she discovers a rare and highly toxic mushroom in one of the gardens. She asks to meet Jinshi at the clinic to tell him what she found. Maomao explains the danger of this mushroom. When he asks how she knows about it, she tells him that she has been poisoned by it before, showing him the scar on her hand as proof, and explaining how she immediately took action to treat it. Then she asks him, "Did you ask me to explore the plants to determine the cause of Concubine Jin's death?" Jinshi seems to respond to the question and asks her, "Do you think this mushroom was the cause of the poisoning that killed Concubine Jin?" But Maomao's thoughts drift off, and she begins to connect the clues. She confirms the cause of death, but hesitates to accuse anyone. Jinshi encourages her to express what's on her mind, and assures her that he can provide assistance if she needs it. Maomao tells him that the death wasn't caused by this mushroom, as there were no signs of oral poisoning. She asks him to give her some time and to bring in some workers to help with some difficult tasks. After further investigation, reflection, and questioning the girls and the doctor about Concubine Jin's condition, Maomao takes Gao Shun and several workers to the North Garden. There, she notices another type of mushroom growing in a foul-smelling area and orders them to dig, only to discover the body of a girl fully adorned with jewelry. The scene shifts to the clinic, where Jinshi arrives to confirm to Maomao that the body found buried is indeed Concubine Jin's, and that the person who died a week ago was none other than her former assistant. He then asks, "How did you know where the body was? And why didn't anyone notice that this assistant was impersonating Concubine Jin?" Maomao tells him about a type of mushroom that typically grows on carcasses and animal dung and was abundant in the area. One of the maids also looked remarkably like Concubine Jin, and it appears that Concubine Jin died under mysterious circumstances. The maid, along with the other maids, disguised herself to conceal the matter. Since the maid covered her face the entire time, no one suspected anything. Finally, Jinshi asks her what she's going to do with the mushrooms she's collected and asks Gao Shun to confiscate them, knowing her curiosity will drive her to try the poisonous mushrooms herself. One of Maomao's colleagues felt unwell, so Maomao told her she would make some medicine for her. They asked Maomao to accompany her to the hospital. Maomao was surprised to find such a place. After confirming that her colleague only needed rest, she asked to stay at the hospital to ensure her recovery so as not to infect others. On her way out, Maomao met Jinshi and spoke to him about her unawareness of the hospital and why only women were there. He explained that he was there to monitor and treat patients, and that only men were allowed to make medicine and perform surgeries, and that she was an exception. Upon leaving, he asked her not to tell anyone that she was making medicine. However, when Maomao's colleague was in her hospital room at night, taking the medicine Maomao had made for her, the nurses on duty saw her and asked, "Is the person who gave you the medicine the same girl who accompanied you? Because she smelled like medicinal plants?" The next day, Lady Gyokyu summoned Maomao to inform her of what had happened to her colleague. Lady Gyokyu asked if Maomao would be punished. She told her that the nurse in charge wanted Maomao's help and didn't want to tell anyone. Maomao's colleague then ordered Lady Gyoki Yu to accompany her to meet the nurse. Upon arrival, the nurse told them that she wanted Maomao to make medicine. Anfa became furious, explaining how dangerous it would be for Maomao if she found out. Maomao asked her to calm down and find out why and who the medicine was for. She told them that her name was Shen Luo and that she wanted to check on a maid who had been unwell for some time. She worked at the Crystal Palace for Concubine Riva, but suddenly disappeared and was never seen again. Maomao asked, "Perhaps she's been transferred to another department?" Shen Luo told her that her condition required her to come to the hospital, but the hospital's administrators refused. It had been half a month since she had last seen her. Maomao then went with the doctor to visit the Crystal Palace to meet Concubine Riva, but Lady Shen, the head servant, refused them entry. Maomao asked her to show the visitation letter signed by Jinshi. On their way in, they heard someone coughing and asked about this part of the palace. Lady Shen told them it was merely a storage area. When Maomao distracted her, the doctor ran to open the door and was surprised to find the seriously ill maid in critical condition. Maomao began to help her, asking, "Why are you treating the maid like this?" Lady Shen replied that she had put her there to prevent the disease from spreading to others. But Maomao told her that this was not true and that she was hiding something. After searching through the boxes, she found a collection of incense and perfumes that were banned in the palace. Lady Shen tried to control herself, thinking that Maomao would not know her true intentions. But after examining the materials, Maomao asked, "Lady Shen, why are you trying to make an abortion pill?" Afterwards, everyone was waiting for Maomao in the reception room of Concubine Riva's mansion. Jinshi tried to interrogate her, but she refused to confess and demanded that Maomao and the doctor be punished for entering the storeroom, claiming that the materials did not belong to her. After taking a fragrant perfume from the box, Maomao told her that she smelled like that perfume today. When Maomao approached Lady Shen, who became nervous and struck her, Maomao backed away, saying that she could not do so because of her lower rank compared to Lady Shen. Suddenly, Lady Riva said that she would verify the scent herself. Jinshi asked about Shen's expected punishment if the scents matched, and he told her that such an act would be considered an attempt to poison a concubine. Lady Riva told him that she was the one who was at risk of being poisoned, and she turned to Shen and said, "You were never my servant. You were jealous of the Emperor's choice of me and his rejection of you." She then tried to throw the box at Lady Riva, but Gaon intervened to stop her. Then Mrs. Riva provoked her, then hit her, and told Jinshi that the head maid had misbehaved, which led to her being hit. So her punishment would be the misbehavior and not the attempt to poison her. Because the attempt to poison her was directed only at her, she took pity on her, and the punishment would be her expulsion from the palace. The next day, Maomao watches her friend Xiaolan study in the classroom. They then go together to the teacher for Xiaolan to ask him some questions as usual. While waiting, Maomao observes a nearby building she hadn't noticed before, which had a strange design. The teacher approached her and told her that this was a place of worship, and that the emperor had to pass an exam inside. Only those who passed were worthy of ruling the country. However, this was ignored because the heir was only one person, so there was no need for this exam. That evening, Maomao performed her duty by tasting food in the emperor's presence. After finishing, the emperor asked her to accompany him to a visit after the meal. They then headed to the shrine they had discussed in the morning, with Maomao wondering why the emperor had invited her. When they arrived, the emperor asked the teacher to repeat the exam. The teacher told her that the result would be the same, but she could definitely do it. The emperor asked, "Who will accompany you?" He pointed to Jinshi and Maomao, and they headed inside. The edifice had 3 different colored doors, and the door they were to choose was written on the front. The emperor began choosing which doors to pass through. Maomao looked bored and tired, and finally, they reached the last door. When the emperor chose the door, The end was a closed room with a plaque reading, "Son of the royal class, you are not yet the queen's son," meaning the emperor had failed the test once again. As they left, Maomao began to reflect on what had happened. The teacher told her that her father Lumen had easily passed the test, as a spark to encourage Maomao to think, making it seem as if it had been arranged with the emperor. After assembling the matter as usual, Maomao asked the emperor, with her permission, were previous emperors nearsighted? The emperor replied, yes, many of them didn't have good eyesight, as far as I know. But the previous emperor had good eyesight. Maomao then asked the teacher if she could try again, but he told her she was not related to the emperor and was not his concubine. He jokingly replied, he can take her as a concubine. Jinshi responded involuntarily, the other concubines will object. The emperor laughed and told Jinshi to accompany her if she chose the door. They entered the shrine, and Maomao began to consider and choose the doors one by one, until they reached the 10th door, which bore a sign reading, "Enter the red door." To everyone's surprise, there was no red door. Maomao chose the green door as the correct destination and passed the test. The emperor asked, how did we take the right path? The teacher replied, you should ask the girl because she chose the path. Following the emperor's request, Maomao told them that in the story of the founding of the empire, the queen could see well in the dark, so the queen's offspring would have the same traits. The method she adopted was to eliminate doors with colors that the empress's offspring could not see, red and green, a common trait in the West. When they reached the last door, she chose the green one because those afflicted with this trait perceive green as red. This trait may have been the empress's, and it has become a legend in this empire. Maomao's great knowledge impressed the shrine master, who mentioned that the Empress Dowager ruled the country because she possessed a sharp intellect. He asked the emperor to include Maomao as one of his concubines to improve his lineage, as her intelligence was so rare. The emperor laughed and said he didn't want to anger Lacan. Relieved that he had completed the long test without passing it, they headed out. The next day, 3 new maids joined Lady Gyokyu's mansion. After introducing themselves and leaving, Infa tries to return Maomao to her room, feeling guilty that Maomao had been punished and sent to the penthouse. However, Maomao relished this punishment and turned the place into a pharmaceutical factory. Lady Hunian arrives and takes them to Lady Gyokyu. Lady Gyokyu tells them to let Maomao do whatever she wants. Lady Hunian tells her to sleep in her room, not in the penthouse. Maomao is delighted with this solution. The scene shifts to Jinshi, who recalls the teacher's words to the emperor when he told him to include Maomao among his concubines to diversify his lineage, and the Empress Dowager's words to him. You must hide the things you want, or someone else will hide them from you. Then Gaoshun came and told him that the preparations for the expedition were complete. Jinshi told him that all that remained was to inform Maomao. But Gaoshun told him, if you want Maomao to accompany you, I doubt you'll be able to hide the truth from her. Jinshi replied that he would tell Maomao the truth about his true status on this expedition. Maomao was then summoned to the reception room at the request of Jinshi and Lady Gyokyu. Jinshi asked permission to take Maomao with him on a hunting trip invited by Lord Shishu, an invitation he could not refuse. After Lady Gyokyu agreed, the expedition set off, and they arrived at their residence. Maomao then asked, why is Mr. Gaoshun staying in this building when he was personally invited? Basin told her that they were from a family known for their direct service to the emperor's family, and that they should not leave Mr. Jinshi. But Gaoshun took his side and told him that Maomao did not know the truth about Mr. Jinshi, but that he would tell her soon, and that he should keep the matter quiet for now. Gaoshun then takes Maomao to her room to rest, and she expresses her surprise at the high level of luxury in the mansion where they reside. The scene then shifts to the forest, where a group of people have received a newly manufactured weapon and are planning an assassination attempt. The next day, the expedition sets out into the mountains to hunt. Upon arriving, Maomao walks up to her and sees Officer Lahaku, who has been assigned to look after a dog. He tells her that the dog is intelligent and can hear a whistle from a mile away. Then, the luncheon begins, attended by Jinshi, who hides his face. However, while he is chatting with Mr. Shishu, the host of the event, Maomao notices his discomfort due to the heat. But Gaoshun tells her to stay calm and wait. Jinshi, unable to bear the heat, leaves the hall, and Gaoshun orders Maomao to follow him. She takes some water with sugar and finds her in the nearby forest. But Jinshi refused to take off the mask, so Maomao asked him to move away so no one would see him take it off. While Maomao was caring for him, something strange exploded next to Maomao and she didn't know what it was. Jinshi carried her and they ran toward the waterfall, jumped into the lake, and then went to a small cave that Jinshi had found nearby. He began to give Maomao CPR, who had drowned from the fall. After Maomao got up, she began drying her clothes, and Jinshi helped her. She asked him what had happened, and he told her they had been shot with a military weapon. Maomao then asked him if there was a way out, and Jinshi told her there was an opening in the ceiling at the end of the tunnel. They headed for her until someone arrived. But Jinshi asked Maomao to stand on his shoulders and try to get help. She refused, but eventually agreed after Jinshi's insistence. She starts trying to climb, but her hand slips and falls on top of Jinshi. She apologizes to him and tries to get up, but Jinshi hugs her while looking at her. The scene then shifts to the dining hall, where everyone is surprised by the delay in the return of the main guest, Jinshi, which has lasted for more than 2 hours. Then we return to Jinshi and Maomao, who has accidentally discovered that Jinshi is not a eunuch, and that she hadn't thought about it because she was trying not to delve into these matters. Jinshi says, "I don't have to bother explaining now." He tells her with serious eyes that he has to tell her the truth. But Maomao tries to change the subject, feeling suspicious. She fears that if she hears the truth, her life will be uneasy, and that it will lead to her getting involved in matters she doesn't want to be involved in. She tells him that she caught the frog by mistake, so she didn't know what secret it was hiding. But Jinshi insists on telling her and throws her to the ground to say, "Do you want to find out if it's a frog or not?" But suddenly Maomao hears a dog's whistle. She starts whistling, and the dog arrives, accompanied by Lihaku. Maomao asks him to pull them up. After they come out and explain what happened, Maomao tells them that there is a plan that could help them find the culprits, but they must hide and will only emerge when they are discovered. The scene shifts to the dining hall, where Lihaku hands Basin a piece of Jinshi's bloodied clothing he found on a slope near the waterfall and asks for permission to join the search party. Basin looks up with a broad smile, and Basin understands that his master Jinshi is safe and wonders what he is thinking. The search begins at the waterfall, and they find another piece of cloth and one of the arrows they used for hunting. Basin asks to search everyone's belongings. When they find the owner of the arrows, he and his servants appear terrified not to be involved in the story. Lihaku asks them to search the forest. One of the perpetrators heads to the weapon's hiding place, where Maomao had previously found it with the help of the dog. Lihaku apprehends him. Maomao tells them that due to the dog's strong sense of smell, it wasn't taken with them on the hunting trip, and that she had found 3 weapons and confiscated them. Then Basin appears, reassured of his master Jinshi's safety. They leave the forest to report the perpetrators. They return to the mountain resort after the hunting trip is over. Maomao is in her room, reflecting on what happened and upset about her treatment of Jinshi. Suddenly, Jinshi appears and asks to speak to her from behind the door. Maomao apologizes, telling him that she won't talk about what happened and that he will remain her master no matter what. He tells her what he's tried to tell her, but circumstances have repeatedly prevented him from doing so. He apologizes for his behavior in the pit and gives her a rare healing substance he'd promised her when he'd previously ordered her to investigate the wooden pillar case that fell on the altar. But Maomao's reaction and joy at the gift, especially when she expressed her gratitude in a sweet and spontaneous way, made him forget about it. She then went to examine the gift and closed the door, postponing it again for a later time. This concludes our first summary of Part 2. Watch the following summary, which will connect all the previous events and reveal the main culprit behind the poisoning and assassination incidents. But who will be the culprit? What is their goal? And what is Concubine Roren's connection to it? This is what we'll find out in Part 2 of the summary of Season 2 of The Pharmacist Maomao's Diary.